Well, good evening and welcome to the Caithness Amateur Dramantics Society tasting. And this evening I'm going to do something I've termed an Islay journey tasting, which is inspired by a small pack of 4 single malts uh, that you can buy in a pack called an Islay Journey. And that pack included, as well as Bunnahabhain 12-year-old co-release from Bunnahabhain, it also contained some whiskies which have been given some poetic, fanciful names, which don't tell you which distillery it is, don't tell you about the colouring or chill filtration standard that they have approached their whiskey with. But they do give them some fanciful names. And in that pack, along with the Bunnahabhain, which I'm not going to taste tonight, I've got 3 from that pack. One called Finlaggan Old Reserve, 40%. And then we have one called Islay Storm at 40%. And then Macleod's Islay at 40%. And then I've also added 2 other whiskies which have been given fanciful names from other whiskey that I had. The Ileach Islay Single Malt at 40%. And then we're going to round up things with one, it's actually an anagram, Aerolite Lindsay, 10-year-old, at 46%. So we're going to start off with the Finlaggan Old Reserve at 40%. And these bottles come in 5cl bottles. I'm not going to have all 5cl tonight. I'll just have maybe about 2cl from these sample bottles. So little miniatures, 5cl miniatures. And so give us a little idea of what we're tasting here. So the source of Finlaggan has remained a very closely guarded secret. It comes from Islay and is bottled by the Vintage Malt Whiskey Company, but nothing else is told about the whiskey. Even the maturation is a guarded secret, but I would guess it to be ex-bourbon casks. So let's see what we have here. It's a very pale colour, so we don't know the age, probably quite young, very pale gold colour, and it has really a very thin tide line there, and really very watery tears. So I suspect it's been chill filtered. We'll try the nose. Well, it does start with hints of ashtray, which are not so nice. But that does turn into a nice burnt coal. But then the strong peat kicks in, and it's quite dominant. It doesn't fade away. It's all about the peat. There's a slight medicinal note with hints of peanut sticking plasters, and then I get something more manuka honey and digested biscuits, peaty smoke, bonfire, herbs, herbal spices, maltiness, and then the fruit, some green fresh fruit. It's quite a rich peat, and then vanilla, sweet malt and some candied citruses lift out of the glass and pleasantly fill the nose. There is a touch of brine and a very slight herbal and iodine backbone that runs through the nose. And that gives the whiskey more depth than its low price tag would have you think. We'll try them out. And there's earthy notes with peat and some iodine effect as well. Sweet notes are present with the hue of oak. Sweet cereals, barley malt, a little peat smoke, TCP, nutmeg and ginger, citruses, marmalade, green fruits, banana. And the peat, vanilla, and then a butterscotch sweetness, paired up with a dose of sweet malt to create a sweet and smoky character that I like. Milky caramel blends with savoury, salty, and grassy notes in the background, with a touch of sweet vermouth and overripe orange. And you know, this is very cheap stuff, and it's just some depth to it. And the tears are actually looking quite nice now on this. And the finish is reasonably long. And there is a winding aftertaste of peat, citrus, caramel, vanilla, and a maltiness that fades out to a smoky, burnt sweetness like marshmallows charred over a campfire. It's a sweet finish with toasty oak and peppermint, slightly tart, black pepper and citrus zest notes. I'm going to try maybe 3 drops of water in this just to get an idea of what the effect dilution has on this. Oh, well, I'm not getting any Scotch mist there. And now it's smoky, peaty, salty, and you get the oak and vanilla and green apple. Try them out. And I get smoke and peat, like firewood. It's like a caramelized sugar. There's a little bit of iodine and vanilla. And the finish is sort of medium length. Smoke, pepper. It's very smooth, this whiskey. Get the peat again, leatheriness. So it does feel very young. It perhaps needs more maturation. It's like a prototype of some finer peated Islay whiskey. Is it, well, let's see which distillery. Is it a young Lagavulin? Is it a young Lafroig? Is it a young Kulila, Bunnahabhain, or Bowmore? Who makes it? Where does it come from? Well, yeah, I would like to know. But it's definitely young whiskey. So where do I sit in this? Well, after tasting it and a few other Islas side by side, I have to say that to me, it tastes like a young Bruichladdich or perhaps a Port Charlotte from Bruichladdich. Though it would appear nearly impossible that the price of it, that's what it would be. But I think I'm pegging it to be either a young Kulila with the appley element or Bunnahabhain, perhaps not quite salty enough for Bunnahabhain though. But that's more likely than a Lagavulin or a Lafroig. Either way, it's cheap. And if you like peaty Islay whiskey, it's incredibly tasty. And I'd recommend that you try it. Maybe get one of these boxes with the 4 whiskies in them for about £29. It's a decent dram and it's a hell of a mystery. Soft in fruit, strong malty presence, but gives it a youthful quality that is fun and inviting. And that maltiness blends well with the smoky, savoury, and sweet qualities of the whiskey and creates a balanced and I think quite a delightful dram that would be perfect for casual sipping. If I had to put money on what it is, I'd say it's a young Kulila, and those can be quite tasty indeed. I'm going to cleanse my palate before our next dram. So the next whiskey, bottled by the Highlands and Islands Scotch Whisky Company Limited. The whiskey source is rumoured to be Bowmore. Others claim that it's a 6-year-old Ardbeg or Lagavulin. It's a 40% ABV, almost certainly coloured and chill filtered. Don't know the casking of this, but I suspect it's ex-bourbon. So again, about 2 CLs, maybe. Let's see where we go with this. So again, it's possibly even lighter than the Finlaggan was. Although there are tears, they're quite thin tears. Let's see what the nose brings. And that's different again. You get peat smoke, oiliness, brininess, some malt. There's a subtle scent of oak smoked in rubbing alcohol. There's some smokiness to the nose, but it's an almost artificial smokiness, as if someone added a drop of liquid smoke into the glass. There's some faint iodine to remind you that it's a coastal Scotch. But it comes out in a rather off-putting manner as the sweet, sticky scent of saltwater taffy, sweet vanilla, slightly malty, it's a medium smoke level, lemon, green apple, a bit like apple rings. Slight greasiness on the nose, bread dough and bread crust. Try the mouth. Get a sort of sweet rush initially, and then onto medicinal peat and seaweed, some bourbon notes, spices and custard, and it's quite weak and watery. There is a sort of banana element to it, but an artificial fruit flavour accompanied by faint salt water. There's not much to be found aside from the artificial fruity flavour of candy. The smoke from the nose seems totally lost on the palate. It's watery, sweet, clearly smoky. It's relatively full bodied in the middle. Yellow fruit, there's a tartness, lime, woody, slight salt, slightly spicy. But after the sweet start, it suddenly becomes woody and dry. And the finish is quick, if not a bit sour. To be honest, you might forget you're even drinking Scotch whisky between sips of this. Uh, there is some smoke and spiciness. There's a very unripe apple. It's more tart than sweet on the finish. And the smoke only climbs onto the palate like charcoal. I'm going to try 3 drops of water in this. And there's no Scotch mist here at all. On the nose, it's definitely Islay, seaweed, smoke, iodine, a certain mintiness, honey, sugar, and then there's with water, it's almost like motor oil. I'll try the mouth. And the oiliness continues to the mouth. The sort of oily citruses, smoke and oak, and there is certainly some forest fruits there too. And the finish is again short, fruity. There's a slight smoky burniness on the swallow, spice and slight pinkiness. Well, this single malt scotch. It's one of those really cheap, sickly sweet candies of a bargain bin brand. You don't even recognise that you may find at the bottom of your trick or treat pail, and which your parents throw away after you passed it over for the good stuff. It's very young, but not very tasty. There's a lot of bad notes here that one finds on young, unrefined Islay malt, but with none of the nice parts. I'm going to cleanse my palate. I think it probably was. The Islay Storm was probably a young Bomoa. So now we're going to try a different one, Macleod's Islay, 40% ABV. Macleod's Islay Single Malt Scotch is a product by independent bottler Ian Macleod Distillers. Now, have they just opened or they've had Ardnahoe in Ireland, so they may even have a distillery in Ireland now. But they're probably most famous for the Smokehead brand, which also contains unknown Islay whiskies. It's bottled at only 40% ABV. It's a young age with added caramel colour from an undisclosed distillery. These are usually signs of low quality whiskey. Cask type has not been told, but I guess this one's been matured in ex-bourbon casks with added E150A caramel colouring. So it's a little darker, certainly, than what we've had in the previous two whiskies. And again, we've got some tears, but they're quite thin. Let's see what we get in the nose. Well, the distinctive peat reek that makes Islay so beloved is there as soon as you put your nose in the grass. There are gentle notes of creosote and iodine, licorice and tar, old rope and brine. Now, if all that sounds completely unappealing, there's also caramel and vanilla with some woody citrus notes. But it is, although gentle, a typically wondrous Islay nose. There's sweet, salty smoke. It's a bit fruity, but smoky peat dominates. And there's thick, uninviting Islay brine. Smoky, fresh campfires and barbecue. Some leather and seasoned oak. It's got a very good balance of a nose. We'll try them out. And there's maritime peat. And iodine combined with sweet malt. It's very straightforward. Brine, smoke, leather, oak, sherry. It's sweet and a bit spicy at the same time. There's some quality cask management and blending being done here. Taste about 8 years old. It's smooth and sippable and has a good weight. But there's also caramel, honey, and vanilla with malt and cereal, with the gentle medicinal smoke and ever-present undercurrent. And it's just a medium finish with smoke, fast smoke and peat. Sweetness kicks in, and red fruits and malt. There's a smoky bacon, crisps on the finish. I'm going to try 3 drops of water in this. I think I did 4 drops there actually. And I don't really see any Scotch mist there. And again, it certainly smells like a young Islay with smoke. But that smoke's turned into some burnt newspapers and burnt grass. There's peat, brine, wallpaper glue, rubber, alcohol, nuts. It's like leather, saddles, raw meat, toffee, light licorice, light vanilla, light oak, and mineral tones as well. We'll try them out. Again, smoky peatiness, lemon peel, caramel toffee, salt, licorice. There's a pepperiness, alcohol again, rubber, tar, leather, and nuts, and that mineral tones like sand and rocks. And the finish is medium to long with charcoal, salt, pepper, vinegar, raw fish, nuts, butterscotch, a kind of perfume soapiness, light ashes, tarriness, sugar tea, and a hint of barbecue sauce. Well, you know, I find it difficult to judge single malts like this. On the one hand, Ian Macleod managed to present an acceptable, true to nature young Islay. On the other hand, this Islay suffers from youth, perhaps indifferent wood, and a low ABV. It's a little dull and lifeless. I would save a little bit more and buy an Ardbeg 10 if you're looking for a great young Islay. That's what I would do, but of course, you also may want to know which distillery produced this Islay. I can't be sure here, but I would guess either Ligabullen or Bowmore. There seems to be a lot of indie Kulilas lurking behind street corners, so you can add them into the guess. And palate might well be with them too. But I've tasted a lot of Cooley's, and it's usually a bit less medicinal. We're at £30 for this one, and I'd say it's probably slightly my favourite of the three that we've had so far. But the body of this whiskey, even at 40%, turns me to make it me think of Lagavulin. I've no idea if that's what it is, but it should give you an idea of what to expect. It's a surprisingly robust and complex single malt that displays all there is to love about Islay whiskey. It's a bit of a sink or swim introduction to Islay, but that's okay. Why take the slow road? The entry level market is quite crowded, and every supermarket in the land carries a range like these whiskies, with Aldi and Lidl offering similar stuff for less than £20. This range may even appear a tad expensive. As much as I think the Aldi and Lidl stuff has been pretty good, however, and I will do a tasting of the Lidl stuff in the near future, I feel like we're dealing with a step up in quality here. Maybe it's a little bit older, maybe the casks are a bit better, or maybe it's just been put together better. Whatever, this is not bad entry level whiskey that I'm tasting here, apart from the Islay Storm. I'm going to cleanse my palate with a Walker's Mini Oak. So next we're moving on to one that wasn't in the original pack I mentioned, but I've got another little miniature here, this time 3 CL, so I'm going to take the lot. Nicely presented little miniature there, nice skinny whiskey bottle shaped miniature. So the Ileach, and we're back to slightly paler colour here. Ileach is a secret bottling single whiskey, malt whiskey from the Islay region of Scotland. The name Ileach means man from Islay, and it's pronounced Ileach. The brand keeps its distillery secret, adding to its mystery. The Vintage Malt Whiskey Company, who well, this is actually the Highlands and Islands Whiskey Company, but the Vintage Malt Whiskey Company have been famous for their Lagavulins, many bottled undercover. A matter of old contracts, you see, but we should beware of hurried generalizations in determining which distillery this is. So this whiskey should showcase the classic Islay style. It's known for its rich and peaty taste. And whiskey fans and critics often praise Ileach. They like its strong peaty flavour and a lasting finish, which should give us a true sense of Islay whiskey. The brand has a few types. The Ileach peaty is younger and has no age statement. It is full of life. The cask strength is bottled without dilution. It offers a strong and flavourful drink. And both types have a warm, distinct peatiness. Ileach is it's made its mark in the whisky market. It's popular with Islay whisky fans, captures the traditional features that Scotch lovers loving this region seek. So let's see what we think of it. It is certainly, again, a little darker than the previous whiskies. Again, I think this is ex-bourbon matured. And it has more tears, thicker tears than before. It's got young raw peat with quite a lot of mercurochrome, band-aids and gouache paint, iodine and seawater. It's certainly Ira. And then I get some pears and lemon, rhubarb, whiffs of kitchen herbs and burnt grass. And you get the phenolic peat smoke with maritime notes, spices, raspberries, honey, ash, and there is a hint of youth there. And that unmistakable, in the background, ashtray note, mixed with herbal tea, citrus fruits, and a touch of brine. It is actually very nice. I get hay, that herbal tea, and peat, and then soft brine and whiffs of moss and fresh mushrooms, plus a little cigarette tobacco, camel cigarette, and marzipan. It's delicate, but it's also complex. And it seems to me that the low strength works very well here. Let's try them out. And here I get a big blast of peat smoke again, with lots of young malty notes, wet wool and lemons. There's hints of tequila and barley sugar. Briny notes and licorice. It's now got limited complexity, but I don't find any flaws in this. Peat smoke with raspberries, honey, certainly maritime notes, spices, and a touch of youth. Peat smoke is quite tame. I get lemon zest and hints of pepper. It's an easy sipper, perhaps a little thin. I think there might be a little bit of sherry cask here. Small raisiny walnut liqueur, dried figs, with quite a lot of heather honey in there too. And there's some salty and menthol licorice. And, you know, it's like a remembrance of Lagavulin 16. That doesn't obligatorily mean that it is Lagavulin, and certainly not 16 years old. And the finish is medium low on ashes, sweet smoke, and there's some young malty notes there, medicinal, vanilla, custard, and toffee. Uh, some malt chocolate, smoke, dried beef. And there's some dry oak, saltiness, hot cross buns, even more menthol and more on herbal teas. There's a very salty aftertaste and touches of tar. I'm going to try 4 drops of water in this. Yeah, there's possibly slight Scotch mister. Let's see what the nose does. And you know, it becomes more malt, more medicinal. And I always find this that with coastal whiskey, adding water seems to up the saltiness and the peat as well. We'll try them out. And water lowers the intensity. Get some treacle cake and some toffee. I'm not sure if I'm disappointed that water smooths that huge impact out. Uh, it manages to create a midpoint between the initial smoothness and intense progression, which creates a well-crafted salt and sweet Islay character. It's more proficient like that, but that great progression unleashed which grabbed me straight out with this whiskey. And I'm sad to see the complexity go down a bit with water. And the finish is medium long with peat smoke, ash, a malty sweetness, citrus, maritime notes, spices, and there is a hint of youth. Well, from the nose and taste, I'm not sure which distillery this is. Some speculate that it's in fact, a young Lagavulin. I don't know what a 5-year-old Lagavulin is like, so you never know. It could be. It's very decent and especially interesting when you're taking the price into account at around 25 to £30 a bottle. It's beginner friendly and affordable. It would be your basic introduction to peated Islay whiskey. So I'm going to cleanse my palate once more with a okay. So this is now, this is a master malt sample of Aerolite Lindsay 10-year-old at 46%. It comes from the character of Islay Whiskey Company, also known as Atom Brands, who own that boutique whiskey company and master of malt. And they launched a new brand called the Character of Islay Whiskey Company, which is to focus on Islay whiskey. The whiskey comes from a mysterious Islay single malt that goes by the name Aerolite Lindsay. The PT whiskey has been sourced from a undisclosed distillery on the island, and it's been matured in a mixture of 70% bourbon barrels, 25% Spanish oak sherry quarter cask, and 5% mystery cask, which sounds actually very nice. And this one is bottled without any colouring or any chill filtration at an ABV of 46% and an age of 10 years old. And look at the colour of that, it's quite pale. And if you haven't countdown out the name already, Aerolite Lindsay is in fact an anagram of the words 10-year-old Islay. So this has got nice tears. It's much thicker in the tears, and yeah, it's lovely, thick, viscous tears. Let's see what we have here. And there's lots of maritime peat with notes of iodine intertwined with a sort of honey sweetness, paprika, salted caramel, and old bookshelves. It's quite coastal, with a chalky minerality and iodine, as well as hints of gherkins. There's fresh lemons and sour apple juice. Bicycle inner tube. Yeah, rubberiness and sweet paprika powder. And again, there's hints of tequila. It's uncomplicated, but it's quintessential either. I'm trying them out. It's got very much a coastal first impression, with touches of iodine, but then some sauerkraut and soft vanilla notes as well. It's got a nice oily mouthfeel, plenty of sweet barley, smoked husks, and bright lemon zest, but also a touch of tar, brine, and ashes, and a touch of honey as well. There's a whiff of charcoal and oat cookies, but also peanut skins, some charred lemon peel and capers. That saltiness. It's very forthcoming. And there are medicinal and coastal notes on the one hand, tar, bandages, mercurochrome, as well as kippers and brine. But there's a light lemon sweetness to balance it. Grapefruits, There's almond oil, olive juice, hints of gravel and chalk. And the smoke returns alongside a sort of minty dark chocolate after it's espresso and new leather with honey and a sort of soy sauce mixed together. And the finish is boiled mint sweeties, but also licorice, all sorts of salted Belgian licorice, uh, bonfire smoke, and toffee penny with that pinch of salt. It's medium dry and ashy, and there's some minty oak in there as well. I'm going to try 4 drops of water in this. And you know, with water, I get ice cream soda and cream cracker biscuits. Jacob's cream crackers. Actually, not cream crackers. I think it's actually custard creams. There's a little canned peanut and sweet tangerine and white grape. Now the nose is not complex. It's a little too general. But the smokiness continues, which is nice. Try them all. And it's smoky. And there's strawberry sort of candy. It's mouthwatering. And there's fired peanuts and corn crisps as well. And with water, the finish is much more ashy than the nose and the palate, and than it was without water. It's now a bit like licking a cigarette ashtray. And, you know, although that can be a nice surprise, it does seem a little monotonous to finish. So, first of all, this is good Islay whiskey, but it's not exactly unique. Uh, I think Aerolite Lindsay is focusing on heavy coastal notes and briny smoke, mostly shaped by the bourbon wood. This whiskey was nothing exceptional, but it's a perfectly decent daily dram at around maybe £44 a bottle, which is pretty good value for a 10-year-old. 46% ABV, non-chill filtered and uncoloured. Uh, it's a good Islay single malt, and one that may be a choice to introduce a new whiskey drinker or non-whiskey drinking friend to the concept of peat smoke. It has smoke and peat, but not to the levels that some people may expect. It's almost like an Islay Light. I think it's probably Coolila and much less likely, but possibly Ardbeg. So, my final thoughts on this. Well, Only Islay Storm was not up to scratch. Of the other four, I'd say Macleod's Islay is worth a try. If you like Coolida, then the Finlaggan is a great example of it at its youngest. And if you're new to Islay whiskey, then the Ileach is a great introduction at a reasonable price. But for me, top of the bunch is the Aerolite Lindsay, not least because it has a 46% heat. It's a natural colour and it's unchill filtered. Thank you for listening.